Good morning. Welcome to this place of possibility. Welcome to this place of possibility. This is love's hearth, the home of hope, a refuge for minds in search of truth, unfolding, ever beautiful, ever strange. Here, compassion is our shelter, freedom our protection. In this abode, we may find comfort and courage. Here may our sight become vision, to see the unseen, to glimpse the good that is yet to be. I'm Dave Cook, your service coordinator for today. If you're new to North Chapel, welcome. If you are visiting, please consider signing the guest book at the back of the sanctuary. We have hearing assistance devices and large print versions of the hymns and order of service on the back table should you need them. Monica will be leading the kids today when we send them out. After the service, we invite you to visit with each other in the front porch, right? Or you can talk in here. Let's see, Joanne sent an email to me, a message about next Sunday, the 10th of September. There'll be a new members gathering to learn the history of North Chapel. Everyone is welcome to attend, but please contact Sherry Belisle if you plan to come, so there's enough lunch for everyone, which will be provided by the Welcoming, Engagement, and Membership Committee. Please take the time to read the other announcements that are in the order of service. And now is the time to put your cell phone in worship mode.
One other announcement.
You have one other announcement.
Hello, Diane Mellinger, music director. We are starting choir this coming week, so anyone who would like to join, we meet Thursdays 4 to 5:30 for rehearsals, Sunday mornings around 9. And you get a much better view from over here. So if you have, especially if you like to read music, like to be in a group, would love to have you. So you can email me or text me or just show up Thursday at 4. Thanks.
Welcome to September. The worship theme for this month is compassion. The Dalai Lama writes that compassion and tolerance are not a sign of weakness, but a sign of strength. Compassion usually involves taking some kind of action to alleviate suffering, but I think the idea applies also in milder circumstances. When I first walked into North Chapel, I felt uncomfortable. I knew no one. But right away, people came up to us and greeted us and spoke with us. Everyone can empathize with what it feels like to be a stranger. And welcoming us was an action of compassion. For me, it takes a kind of inner centeredness to approach someone I don't know. I would call that centeredness a form of strength. Cindy and I have been the beneficiaries of your welcome at North Chapel. As we returned Sunday after Sunday, we gradually began to feel a part of this community. We started to feel connected to the congregation. We were no longer strangers. We want to thank you for your strength and your compassion. We'll now have a brief time of meditation.
at the sound of the animals. I wish, there are times when I wish that you could just be here, looking out at all of you, because you just kind of like, ooh, you know, but still like maturely, you know, like, didn't want to lose any pretenses, you know. But when there was some animal that went like, you know, it went like, woo, I can't remember the sound exactly. And everybody all of a sudden was 5.5 years old. Everyone. So having just seen a 5.5-year-old, I have to tell you a 5.5-year-old joke, okay? Why did the chicken cross the road? Nope. Nope.
Get to the other side.
Yes, no. The answer is to get to your house. Knock, knock. The chicken! That's like the best joke, I don't know why. St. Augustine said, those who sing pray twice. Do you know what a near enemy is? The near enemy of compassion is pity. Okay, so a near enemy is something like when you strive to get somewhere and you don't make it the whole way, you kind of just come up a little bit short with something that looks like the semblance of what you're trying to do, and you're convinced that it is compassion when it's really just, God, man, it just must be terrible. You know, which is pity. It takes a lot to get the whole way to compassion, so we have to endure. So if you were exceedingly thirsty, which of these would be the better choice? Drinking a glass of water or one of sand? Water. Well, be careful. The right answer is not always obvious. It's tricky. And tricky choices tend to be difficult to make. So how do we do it? I saw an incredible interview on cable recently. It was an interview of Republican voters talking about who they were going to choose for. It was right after the debates, like who they thought were most impressed by. And there were a bunch of people who were still most impressed by the former president. And there was a couple, conservative couple from the Midwest somewhere, and when asked who she would be voting for in this election cycle, she said that she didn't know, and her husband said that he was definitely voting for Donald Trump. And he's a kind man, you know. And he said something like, I haven't been convinced of the evidence against him. And I was just, you know, part of me reacted to the 66 court cases, you know. Part of me reacted to all of these things, but part of me also was open to the fact that there's much conversation in our country that says otherwise. There are lots of people who still believe that the election was stolen. There are lots of people who still believe in ways we believe differently right now. It is as if we can't tell the difference. We as an American body cannot tell the clear difference between glasses of water and glasses of sand. So that's why I say be careful. The choice is not always accurate. There was a choice before an actor named Oscar Isaac about 10 years ago. He starred in a film called Inside Llewyn Davis. Has anyone seen that film? It's a great film. It's a wonderful film. It's a film about a sort of lost moment in folk music history. The folk music scene in Greenwich Village in 1961, just before the folk revival, just before Dylan and Baez and their colleagues showed up. The filmmakers needed an actor who could play guitar. They did not need, they needed someone who could really do both things. They didn't need an actor who played guitar on the side. And they didn't need a guitarist who could also act. They really needed both to make this work. When Oscar Isaac was asked about this, he admitted that he had been playing guitar for years. He admitted to being an actor who played guitar on the side, but he really wanted the part. But an actor who played guitar on the side was not what they really needed, so he committed to learning how to play at a deeper level. He went at it, hardcore. It took him about a year of intensive guitar training. And Oscar said, I've been a musician, well, since I was 12, I've been playing guitar. And what's funny is a friend of mine who's been playing in Greenwich Village for years, he's been living on McDougal Street for 40 years. His name is Eric Franzen. I started playing with him when I started preparing for this movie, and he said, you've been a guitar owner for 20 years. You've been a guitar player for about 7 months. Before that moment, it was hard for Oscar to know the difference between a glass of water and a glass of sand. The kind of guitar playing that Travis picking, that the film required, was beyond his grasp at the time. He had to learn it, he had to grow into it, he had to practice. He had to become that glass of water. Music carries life, love, and laughter in its wake. The more we sing, the more we develop every one of these. The more we sing together, the richer and the more beautiful we become. It is the habit of common language to say encouraging things to young musicians, to say things like, you're getting pretty good at that, or I can really hear you improving, or don't be nervous, just play from your heart, or practice makes perfect. There are so many things that we commonly say, and we want to be perfect, and we believe that the thing called perfect is possible, whatever perfect is. And so we go out to the woodshed to practice for 30 minutes a day, or for several hours, or endlessly. And we practice in basements and in garages, in walled off and soundproof practice rooms. We tuck ourselves away so as not to disturb the loved ones around us or our neighbors, lest we anger someone to the point where we get in trouble for making music. So we hide the practice until we're ready to perform. The one who performs with a few mistakes as we notice them, is clearly the best. They get the big door prize. I remember the year that Bob Dylan was awarded the Nobel Prize for Literature. It was 2016. There was a bit of controversy because he declined to go to the official ceremony in Sweden. It was a big deal. It was a black tie event. Martin Luther King was awarded the Nobel, and he received the prize in Sweden. Toni Morrison was awarded the Nobel, and she received the prize in Sweden as well. Nelson Mandela and Friedrich Wilhelm de Klerk were awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for their work for the peaceful termination of the apartheid regime and for laying the foundations of the new democratic South Africa, and they received the prize in Sweden. Bob Dylan, was the outlier. He chose not to attend his ceremony. He couldn't do it. He had other commitments at that time. So Patti Smith, his friend and colleague, received the Nobel Prize for him, gracing the elaborate ceremony, of course, with music. And what incredible music it was. She sang, "Where have you been, my blue-eyed son? Where have you been, my darling young one? I stumbled aside with 12 misty..." She would sing the whole thing, the whole first verse. Her voice was shaking. She had a lot of energy. She did not seem to be relaxed. Commonly, her voice shakes. I don't know Patti Smith as a relaxed person, but her voice commonly shakes. Some voices do, hers does. That's part of who she is. When she sang the song in Sweden, her voice was shaking because she was nervous. In fact, she was so nervous that she forgot the words to the song. She forgot them right there, center stage, with everybody listening, with everybody watching, tuning in on cable television sets, or with computers online. She sang, "What did you see, my blue-eyed son? What did you see, my darling young one? I saw a newborn baby with wild wolves all around it. I saw the babe that was just bleeding," which is not the line that Bob Dylan wrote. And then she stumbled, and then she lost her way, and the song stopped. The music stopped. Right there. This happens to us sometimes. We stumble and lose our way. For those of us who sing, and we all must sing, we must. Life requires this of us. The song goes on anyway, and life is singing that song. Yuri sang. Martin Luther King received the Nobel Peace Prize in 1964 for his nonviolent struggle for civil rights in the Afro-American population. He met a violent end 4 years later in Memphis, Tennessee on the 4th of April in 1968. 3 days later, in live performance, Nina Simone was already singing about it. 3 days later, after the loss of her friend, she was already singing about it in a song called Why. Her introductory words were these. She said, "I want to do a tune written for today, for this hour, for Dr. Martin Luther King. We've stated before that this whole program is dedicated to his memory, but this tune was written about him and for him, so we had yesterday to learn it, so we'll see." Nina Simone's voice was shaking when she said these words, but it was not because she was nervous. She was not nervous in the way that we commonly use the word. I don't believe that Nina Simone was nervous because she feared somehow not pleasing the audience. As if she was concerned that she had not yet practiced enough. To think in this way is to misunderstand the meanings of music and pleasure and prayer. I believe that the voice of great artists shake in the presence of that which is beyond us. Because it is too much for any one of us to handle, because it is supposed to be too much for any of us to handle, because it is our better angel and our braver angel breaking free. There was as David Cook and I were preparing for this service, we were trying to think about what compassion means in the context of this service. The thing that we anchored on, the thing that I anchored on and sort of found myself stumbling back to, was a passage that was in a film called The American President. The American President, starring Michael Douglas and Richard Dreyfuss, Michael J. Fox. It was written in 1995. It came out in 1995, and there was a great exchange between Michael Douglas, who plays a president named Andrew Shepard, and Michael J. Fox, who plays a character named Louis Rothschild, his domestic policy advisor. And Louis is doing the very best he could to hold back his rage at the American president, who had been outplayed in the presidential trail by an unscrupulous challenger, a challenger named Bob Rumson, played by Richard Dreyfuss. Finally, President Shepard confronted Louis because the gloves were coming off. And Shepard said, "You've got something to say to me?" And Louis said, "Respectfully, sir, I think that we should examine the new poll for more than its value as a box score." Louis was frustrated because Shepard, his champion, was pulling his punches and holding back in public conversation. The presidential campaign had become a debacle. In the common sense of the term, it had become a sudden calamitous failure for him, both politically and personally. In the personal realm, things had gone too far. Andrew Shepard had been insulted by his challenger. The lover of Andrew Shepard had been insulted. So Andrew Shepard was concerned about the polls. They seemed to somehow show that the American people were more concerned about his personal life than they were concerned about his presidency. And Louis says, interrupting this, "Mr. President, 264 million people don't care about your life. They really only care about their own." He said, "Mr. President, you've raised a daughter almost entirely on your own, and she's terrific. And what does it say about us that in the past 7 weeks, 59% of this country has begun to question your family values?" Family values was the theme of American politics back then. Just then, the chief of staff chimed in, defending. He said, "Louis, the president does not answer to you." And Louis immediately rebuked him. He said, "Oh yes, he does. He does. I'm an American citizen. This is my president, and this is my country. And in this country, it is not only permissible to question our leaders, it is our responsibility. You already know that, Mr. President, because you have a deeper love for this country than any man that I've ever known. And I want to know what it says about you that in the past 7 weeks, 59% of Americans have come to question your patriotism. Andrew Shepard didn't want to play the games of dirty politics, not like his challenger, Bob Rumson, was playing. He didn't want to sink to that level and was surprised that the American voters were paying so much attention to his opponent. He said, Lewis said, the only reason they're paying attention to him, Mr. President, is because they don't have a choice. Bob Rumson is the only one doing the talking. People want leadership. In the absence of genuine leadership, they will listen to anyone who steps up to the microphone. They want leadership, Mr. President. They're so thirsty for it that they'll crawl through the desert toward the mirage. And when they discover that there's no water, they will drink the sand. Andrew Shepard responded insightfully. He said, Lewis, we've had presidents who were beloved, who couldn't find a coherent sentence with 2 hands and a flashlight. People don't drink the sand because they're thirsty, Lewis. People drink the sand because they don't know the difference. People drink the sand because they do not know the difference. So we settle for the near enemy of political excellence. We settle for the near enemy of truest patriotism. We drink the sand, and it does not quench our collective national thirst. It does not really do us any good. The Dalai Lama writes, compassion is the wish to see others free from suffering. Pema Trojan says, having compassion starts and ends with having compassion for all those unwanted parts of ourselves. And she's right. And from there it extends outward indiscriminately, saving all those who see the light, and healing all those who hear the music, and blessing all who beautify this good world in some way. A young man named Max came up to me at Silver Lake just yesterday, and he said, can I take your picture? And I said, sure, why? And he said, it looks really cool, you playing guitar against the water, you know? I had brought an electric guitar and a portable amplifier to Silver Lake, and I was practicing. And he took like 25 pictures. So I was a little bit creeped out after a while, but then he sent one to me and just engaged in conversation. I did not recognize him. I did not recognize the features of his face. I knew I didn't know him, but he looked like someone who I did not know. And I was very glad that some fence has come down enough for someone like him to approach someone like me, even to creep me out and to take a bunch of pictures. It reminded me that we are all trying to bless this beautiful world in some way. May we all find cool, clear water, fresh water, to wet our lips and to quench our thirst. May we leave the sand by the sea where it will do the world some good. And may we learn to sing, each to our gift, to sing the beauty of our lives, to sing as beautifully as Yuri did, and does again through us. May it be so. Blessed be. And amen. East, west, north, and south, let the long quarrel cease. It was a great peacemaker who said, if there is to be a brave new world, our generation will have the toughest time living in it. As we grow, may we open our hearts beyond pity and forward into compassion to understand the grief that this time creates in us. May we be gentle with ourselves and gentle enough with one another to find the best in who we are, who we've been, and who we will be. Enjoy. Knock, knock. May it be so. Blessed be. And amen.